thank you for inviting us. Are we on? Can you hear? Yeah? Good. Excellent. My name is Marci Schramm, and I'm the Executive Director of French Quarter Festivals Incorporated. As a lot of you, I hope, know, we produce 3 festivals per year. And Greg Schatz is our Entertainment Director. He books all the music for festivals and does a lot of other things. Also with us is Heather Twitchell. She's our Operations Director over here in the purple. And Heather is a Loyola graduate of this program. And Heather's role at the festival is that I call her the magician. She makes it all happen in terms of stages, sound, permits, police, fire watch, all the tough stuff. So thanks for coming. I think, first of all, I wanted to ask, just because I'm really curious, how many people here are from New Orleans or Louisiana? Okay, it's about half. And then how many of you are, I guess the rest of you are from out of state? And how many of you have been to either French Quarter Festival? Anyone? Oh, good. Excellent. Okay. And Satchmo Summerfest? Excellent. And Christmas New Orleans Style? Great. Okay, so those are our 3 festivals. And I think maybe the first thing is just to talk about who we are and what we do. French Quarter Festivals, Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We produce festivals for the community. Everything we do is free and open to the public, which makes us a little bit different than a lot of the other organizations out there. It's truly a labor of love, and with what we do, we engage the whole community to help us, including the musicians, including a lot of our, the famous restaurants that participate, including a lot of places like the Historic New Orleans Collection, Preservation Hall, just all this great group of, this community is so full of exciting and interesting people that, they help us throw this grand party every year for 435,000 people. The way this got started is in 1984, 26 years ago, the mayor at the time, Dutch Morial, noticed that locals were not coming to the French Quarter anymore. What happened is the World's Fair was in New Orleans, and there were extensive sidewalk and street repairs, and it was such a mess in the French Quarter that locals just decided not to come down anymore, and that was a big problem because the businesses were hurting. The warning shot was fired, and so Dutch Morial, who was very visionary, said, let's throw a huge party and get the locals to come back to the quarter. And so that's what happened. In 1984, it started out as this tiny little community event. There were just a couple stages of music, a few restaurants, really funky, crazy things like weird talent shows with girls in bathing suits and strong men, and Ed McMahon came down, and it was just a funny little thing. But it caught on. The first weekend rained out, so they said, let's do it next weekend. They did, and the thing took off. And so now, in its 26th year this year, we have a 3-day festival that happens every year in April, and 435,000 people come. Half of them are tourists, and half are locals. And a lot of locals love to call us their favorite festival, which always makes us smile. So with that being said, I think maybe we can move on to some of the other things that interest you all. I think as a nonprofit, it's interesting to know how we make our money and how we spend our money. We are by no means a huge organization. We run very lean and mean. There's just about 5 staff members, and including myself. And we do marketing, merchandise, operations, entertainment, finance director, and we have a volunteer coordinator. And the way we make our money, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I feel bad I'm talking the whole time.
No, go for it.
Okay, well, I'll talk a bit and then Greg can take over. So the way we make our money is, there's only 3 ways we make our money because there's no ticketed gate. Sponsorship. Our sponsors are our lifeblood. We have people like Zatarain's, which is the food company, Saturn, the car company, Abita Beer is a big sponsor, Southern Comfort. People like that really help us to make us do what we do. We have 18 stages of music, which means 18 stages of sound, which means 750 musicians, which means lots of expense. So it's a very expensive festival to produce. We also pay for New Orleans police and for sanitation, and those are really, really big expenses with what we do. So sponsorship is number 1. Number 2 is the sale of beverages. Abita is a huge sponsor. Southern Comfort and Coke are big sponsors, and they actually give us cash and they give us discounted product, and then we resell it to the public. We have 1,000 volunteers who man our booths at the festival. It's really fun. If you've never volunteered, think about it. It's great. For a 4-hour shift, you get a really cool volunteer t-shirt, you get food and drink tickets, and you have 4 hours of a fun time and being part of this community thing that we do. So that's the volunteers and the beverage sales. The third way we make money is through sales of merchandise. We have great t-shirts, posters, jewelry, all that kind of thing, and that's a big money maker for the organization. So that's how we do what we do. I have to consult my cheat sheet sometimes too. Some of the really special things about French Quarter Festival, which is our biggest event of the year, are that we have some signature things that make us different than other festivals. We have what we call the world's largest jazz brunch. And what that is 65 of New Orleans' finest restaurants, everyone from Antoine's to Galatoire's to Pat O'Brien's, and they make up this great vending of food. And so you can get, for really reasonable prices, tastes of, oysters on the half shell, or, a big hurricane, or anything you can imagine at the festival. And we take great pride in the quality of the food. We only allow restaurants to participate. There's no catering company, so it keeps it kind of pure in that way. Also, I think before we get into French Quarter Festival more, maybe I'll talk about the other two festivals, which are equally as important. In August, we produce a festival called Satchmo Summerfest. And I wanted to ask, how many people know who Satchmo is? Oh, good. A lot of times people don't know who Satchmo is. So Satchmo is Louis Armstrong. His nickname was Satchmo. A British journalist commented that he looked like he had a satchel mouth because his cheeks were so big, and so the name kind of stuck, and they call him Satchmo. So his birthday is August 4th, and every year we do a 3-day festival that pays tribute to the life, legacy, and music of Louis Armstrong, who is, of course, a New Orleans hometown hero who made a huge impact on the world and still does today. And that festival is 3 days, and equally as important as the 4 stages of music are the colloquiums that we produce inside the building. And we bring in scholars, people from all over the world come, including Armstrong's record producer, George Avakian, who's still alive today. And it's fascinating, and it's free. It's all free and open to the public. And then December, why don't you talk about Christmas? You need to talk, Greg. You can talk about Christmas.
Oh, Christmas New Orleans style is the third large event we produce, and it's not so much a concentrated festival as it is a series of events. We have a concert series, I believe, like 13 concerts that happen in St. Louis Cathedral of people performing Christmas music. We have Réveillon feast dinners planned out at various restaurants around town, cooking demonstrations, and events like caroling, and it's a whole month long of events. Basically, it was started to drive better business around Christmas, around the Christmas holiday season.
A lot of what we do with all 3 of these festivals, it's really to encourage people to come to the French Quarter, to support French Quarter businesses, to support local musicians, to put money back into the economy. A free festival seems like, oh, it's just a free festival, but the impact is tremendous. What we do just in April alone has a $150 million economic impact for the region, and $10 million in direct taxes go to the city and the state. So it is a really valuable thing. It's a valuable event for the tourism sector, for our local businesses, for our local musicians. Our restaurants love it because they do so well out there festival weekend. And if you've never been to French Quarter Festival, I really encourage you to come because it is so much fun. And also I encourage you to explore the festival because throughout these 18 stages of music, which sometimes kind of is overwhelming, there's these special events that are sometimes they're just so magical. Like we close the festival Sunday night with something called Dancing at Dusk, where a big band plays and everyone's dancing in the streets, kids and old people, and it's really cool to watch. We have Battle of the Bands, which is traditional jazz bands that compete against each other on Saturday night. And there's a lot of really unique, interesting things. And the reason we do those things isn't just because they're fun, but because a big part of our mission and goal is to preserve the culture and heritage of New Orleans. We really like to focus on a lot of traditional jazz. You can see great brass bands, the traditional ones and the new ones. We give the new musicians great opportunities to showcase themselves in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And it's just a really special thing that so many different segments of the community come in and help us. And maybe you want to talk about that a bit, like the different partners. We have so many partners in these festivals that just make them what they are. Like Parks and the National Park Service.
Right. The National Park Service programs a bunch of talks during the festival, and also helps us program our children's stage. And we also have Tulane Children's Hospital sponsors a day of children's programming as well. So we get a lot of help from the community.
A lot of nice things too that happen are because of the give back, because we give so much back to the community. A lot of agencies do special things for us. Like for example, Parks and Parkways, which is part of city government, allows us to use Jackson Square as the heart of the festival with a stage. And we are the only organization that's allowed to do that. Once a year, our festival gets to use the sacred ground of beautiful Jackson Square. And so there's a lot of things in the community. Like, we work very hard to build and maintain relationships and just value these people who come together to help us make it happen. And then there's some interesting things we do things. Like, some of the other festivals, they just go out and they hire musicians. They say, here's who we want. We're contracting them. Well, we don't do that. We have a really unique, interesting way to do it, which Greg can talk about.
All right. Well, I believe in the beginning, French Quarter Festival was a union-only festival. You had to be in the union to get hired as a musician, and it was all traditional jazz on the stages that were set up in the French Quarter. And you know, after a few years, I think other bands wanted to get in, so they worked out this system where you could get sponsored in order to play at the festival. And what that means is you basically seek sponsorship from somebody who pays you for your performance to play. And this is sort of all fits into how we produce a large festival on a shoestring budget. Is all of these sponsored bands get sponsored by businesses or other organizations directly for their performances. And in return, those businesses get publicity associated with the event. They get their name in 150,000 brochures, that we make, and also their name on the stage. They can put up a banner and stuff like this, and it's sort of another way we bring the community together to put on our event. Way we also benefit from having the community involved.
And then also, what's really nice too is the Musicians Union is so supportive of our organization, because they see the value in the fact that in one weekend, 750 musicians are working and just making the city look so good, and really just showing off what a great place this is and just how deep the cultural and musical roots go. And so the musician itself, from their national office in New York, actually gives a financial contribution to the festival, which helps us to pay the musicians. So that's a really great thing too. Also, I'd like to point out we have some interesting partnerships that have sprung up. For example, last year we partnered with Preservation Hall, which is such a fantastic place to go see traditional jazz most nights of the week. And the partnership we have with them is they came on as a sponsor, and so during festival weekend, all 3 days, Preservation Hall is open free to the public. So number one, normally they're never open during the day. Number two, you usually have to pay to go. So during French Quarter Festival weekend, if you've never been to Preservation Hall, it's a great experience, and I encourage you to come down one day and go in that very historic place where a lot of very famous people have played and experienced some really great music there. We also, you know, what we do is with these 18 stages, we have a lot of fun. It's not just jazz. It's also, you know, we've got Cajun Zydeco, rhythm and blues, rock. We've got a classical music stage. We've got Symphony and the Opera performing. We've got, we showcase young talent. We've got the, New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, their young program.
The Heritage School of Music had
Thelonious Monk Institute also is in it.
Right.
We've got sometimes the kids from NOCA, New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, play. So we like to encourage young musicians and give people experience, which is part of, you know, it's part of the give back. People give us a lot, so we like to really try and give back and support, especially, you know, people who are trying to make their way and learn. And, you know, to be on a stage with just this vast audience, there's no better experience in life than that. Backtracking a little bit, I think I want to talk about just being in the music business industry. And my small personal story is that when I was in college, I wanted to teach Shakespeare. I said, I would like to be, I was very, you know, whatever. And my dad said, you're not teaching Shakespeare, you're studying business, which was the best advice in the world anyone could ever give me, because you can take that business, I mean, take economics, take accounting, take finance, take marketing, because all of it in anything you do in life is going to help you. I mean, I took it and I worked in business for a big corporation for a while, and then I was just miserable. So I started a career in opera, and for 15 years I worked for opera companies all over the country, including New Orleans Opera, and just was able to take my passion and take all the great things like that you'll learn at Loyola, and you can, so it's nice to have this broad view of, you know, it's not just all about music and the arts, but you have to have some business background, because it's only going to help you in everything you do in your life. So that's my 2 cents. And Greg's too. Greg's a professional musician. Besides doing what he does for us, he's a very successful musician. He's played with lots of bands. He's toured Europe. He has his own record label, so it's interesting from his perspective too about.
Right. I've been actually at French Quarter Festivals now since October, so this is like a new job for me. Before that, I was professional musician for about 13 years. And I learned a lot of the business stuff sort of by necessity. Started a record label to put out my own records, mainly. And, you know, it would have been nice if somebody else was going to come along and pay me a lot of money to put out records, but I put out my own records and learned booking and promotion and publicity and all of those things by necessity so that I could do them myself. And, you know, I found it very interesting now to be on the other side of the telephone, you know, getting the calls from people who want to play at French Quarter Festival instead of always being the person, you know, calling for gigs. I do think it's sort of important and very interesting to learn both sides of the business, depending on, you know, whatever side you want to be on. Whether you're solely on the business side, it's sort of interesting to be able to see the musician's perspective of how that's going to play out, you know, especially with what we do at French Quarter Festival. We have so many people who want to get to play, and you really get a chance to meet a lot of very interesting musicians.
I think, too, it's another really special part of our organization is that it's not just Greg out there booking music. He has this committee, and it's a tradition of the organization that we engage a community called, it's a volunteer group called the Entertainment Committee. And it's made up of musicians, a lot of older musicians who have been around forever, people like Connie Jones and Eddie Bayard, who are fantastic trad jazz musicians, people like Melissa Weber, who's also known as DJ Soul Sister. She's on our entertainment committee. Don Marquis, who was the curator of jazz at the Louisiana State Museum for years and years and years, and he is an expert in traditional brass bands. He's a great consultant. Rachel Von Voorhees, who I believe spoke to your class, she's a harpist. She's on our committee and helps with the classical music stage. And so we call in this brain trust of just incredible, intelligent, dynamic people. And it's, to me, it's one of the most fun committees we've got, because you sit around with this group and they hash through the music. We also have Libra Legrone. She's a curator of Southern music at Ogden Museum of Art. We have Barbara Gilmore, who's the wife of a well-known musician who's very outspoken and rowdy very often. It's just this really, it's a big group, but it functions well because everyone contributes. We argue, we don't agree, but in the end, it's what's best for producing this big festival. I mean, it's how many hours of, it's like 250 hours of music in the weekend. And it really comes off. I mean, I think a lot of people, what I love most is festival weekend when I'm going all over the place. Just people stop you in the street and they just say thank you because they recognize that French Quarter Festival is such a very unique, it's kind of like a little family thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's for such a big event. There's so much special little nuances to it because so much thought goes into the planning, I think. And plus you're in the middle of the French Quarter, which is one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the world. So there's just all of those things that really make it nice. This year we've got an exciting new partnership with Audubon Institute. And if you're familiar with the French Quarter, you know that the aquarium is right there anchoring Canal Street. And so over at Audubon Institute, we're going to do this fantastic, gigantic, huge kids area for kids and families because that's been a booming part of the festival, is just the draw for family entertainment, because we're by no means, I mean, we're really fun, but we're not so much like a booze fest. It's kind of like, you know, it's more, people come for the music, and they come to party too, but they come for the music. And so with Audubon, we're partnering with Tulane Hospital for Children, and we're also looking at partnering with some other really great neighborhood organizations to produce like a thing where we're going to focus on healthy families. So kids can come, they can have fun, but they also learn about healthy eating, about how if you exercise, you know, have hula hoop contests and jump roping and just all kinds of fun stuff like that. So there's a little bit of a message there too, which also follows Tulane's, you know, mission and goals for keeping families healthy, and which I think is important. What else? I think Christmas New Orleans style we didn't talk about too much, so maybe we could talk a bit more about that. Christmas New Orleans style was another event that was born because there was hoteliers were complaining that December was a very slow month for them, and so you know, people thought, oh my gosh, why did we not discover sooner that, you know, number one, New Orleans is beautiful weather-wise in December. There's so much to do. And so what French Quarter Festivals was enlisted to do was basically we package Christmas. We take what everyone's doing around town. We take Christmas in the Oaks, we take the Louisiana Children's Museum events, we take all this stuff, and we come out with a book, and we publicize everything you can do in New Orleans over the holidays. And then we work with Greg mentioned, we work with the local restaurants to produce these really fabulous things called Réveillon dinners. And Réveillon was a Creole tradition, and it was a feast that would take place Christmas Eve after Mass. After midnight Mass, the Creole families would go home, and after a day of fasting, they would have these elaborate feasts. And so it's a tradition that's once again rooted in the history of the city where, any restaurant that wants to participate has to apply, and we have a jazz brunch committee that reviews it, and it has to be food that would be served at the time in the 1800s when Creole families were eating. So there's a lot of detail that goes into the planning. It's like you can't serve, like Thai spring rolls because Creole families wouldn't have eaten that in the 1850s. So it's kind of a fun learning experience too, working there, because for example, this other committee I just mentioned, the Jazz Brunch Committee, they're restaurateurs, they're historians, and they're people who they care so much about history, tradition, and keeping our culture alive that goes into everything they do, which I think makes for a successful program. At this point, I wanted to ask, does anyone have any questions or any comments about anything, maybe things you'd like to see or ways we could do things better or anything? We're kind of blind up here, so we can't.
Hello. Come on, guys. Is this thing working? Okay. I just want to let you know that they got the Offbeat Award for the best festival this last year. That's very good.
We did. Thank you.
Oh.
And I really hate to say this, I played on a royal stage on the very first one, and there might have been 15 people around.
Wow,
It
that's
was
fantastic.
a long time ago.
What band?
I played by myself.
Do you still play?
What's that?
Do you still play?
Once in a while.
Oh, great. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Mountain Dulcimer.
I'm glad to hear that. That's great. Excellent. Yeah, it was a great honor last week. Offbeat Magazine readers voted French Quarter Festival their favorite festival. And in this town, that is a huge honor because there are so many great quality events. And in fact, New Orleans Magazine readers just voted as favorite festival too. So we were very pleased. It was, we don't look to get awards, but it's nice when you get some recognition. So it was very nice. Yes.
What are the quality of the press kits that musicians from New Orleans sent you?
The quality of the press kits?
Yeah, is
You
it
wanna
good
talk about
quality?
Oh,
Or
I'm glad
yeah.
you asked that because actually we were just talking about this in the office. Let me add one thing before he talks. People, they'll call them up and they'll say, I want to play your festival. And they would just send a link to, like an email link to the website. Don't ever do that. Greg wants something in his hand. He wants a CD and he wants something. He doesn't want to go track down people's websites.
Right, and well, it's also because we have an entertainment committee, so people call me and they ask, like, well, did you get the link? And I said, yeah, I did. Maybe I even looked at it, and then I say, well, I've got a whole committee, and they want me to then go out and send the link to everybody in the committee, and it's like, I don't know about you, but we get inundated with email.
But what do
So
you
we
like
try
to see?
What do we like to see? I like to see a concise press kit. I mean, this has been very informative for me, being an artist. On the other end, first having tried to pack as many materials as possible in, like articles, whatever quotes I could, and whatever materials, headshots. I mean, it's good, and if you do have a lot of information, then maybe you need to go more than a 1-sheet or a 2-sheet. But in general, when you're dealing with this kind of volume, you want something that has a heavy impact, like just as they call it, a 1-sheet for a reason, I guess. You get to look and see what's this band about right away. I mean, I know a lot of people are doing sonic bids these days. We're not quite there. We still prefer the old-fashioned, CD. We don't have tapes or LP records anymore, but.
So what do you, like specifically, you like to have a bio and then like some quotes or where
Yeah,
they played?
yeah,
or?
description of the music, any pertinent information like that,
That's true. Actually, we get some applicants come in, and it's names of bands we've never heard of, and just by the name, you can't tell even what kind of music it is. And sometimes we'll be like, what stage would this even go on? Like, you can't take for granted that people just know. Like, you should say, trad jazz. You should say, Cajun Zydeco, or I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just I think maybe do the dummy,
Right.
dummy proof it so that people know.
I would say, and don't make up like your
Right. Yeah. What's the one you said you call your band because you don't fit into?
Oh, right, because I actually started. It's funny because I actually invented my own genre. I was calling my genre of music honky squonk. But the main reason, and I think the main thing with that is not to let it go too long, like to say something like roots rock instead of saying like I play rock, funk, disco, bluegrass, and all in one. I mean, if you need to describe that, maybe in the body of your your press kit somewhere, but as far as like somebody asks you what the style of music, it's really good to have a short answer, a few words or a short sentence at most, I would say.
The one thing we don't have at our festival yet is DJs. We had talked, DJ Soul Sister has gotten very popular, and she's so talented, and her collection is amazing. And we talked this year maybe about bringing her into the festival, and she actually said, no, let's keep French Quarter Festival pure, like not yet. And so we're not there yet, but we do represent most other genres. We've got country music, it really runs the gamut of a great cross-section of music.
And I think the main thing is that it's a local showcase. It's, obviously, Jazz Fest is great too, and we love that, but this is really our showcase for local New Orleans music, and that's sort of our mandate. Other than we do have a stage with international bands that come, the traditional jazz bands that come on their own dime to play in the French Quarter because it's kind of like Mecca for them. But other than that, I get press kits from people like the Coasters, which is a band I love. Well, we're not really taking bands from Las Vegas. You come to New Orleans, to the French Quarter Festival, you see the New Orleans bands or sometimes the regional bands. It's not just New Orleans. We also have some Zydeco and Cajun music from around the state, but it's very regional.
Actually, the newest member of our entertainment committee is someone who used to work here. He was a great Loyola faculty member, Reed Wick, and he's now with the Grammy Foundation, but he works out of New Orleans. And he's joined our entertainment committee, and he has been a godsend in terms of helping Greg to book Cajun Zydeco bands from all over the state. He really has his finger on the pulse of up-and-coming acts, the perfect mix, because Greg, as a musician, knows a lot, but of course isn't an expert in every single kind of music. So Reed has been an amazing help with that. And Reed's actually talking about hosting musician hospitality tents at the festival this year so that we can do something nice for musicians and so that he can, help recruit new members for the Grammys so we can get more awards.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? Oh, right. Heather is so good. She pointed out to me, we are, as I said, a 501c nonprofit with 5 staff members, and we love interns. We have been very blessed with the cream of the crop of great interns, and working with French Quarter Festivals is so much fun because we go through this intense, crazy time, and we all get along great, so there's never any fighting. And it's everything from marketing to helping Heather with permitting and all the other stuff she's doing. There's just so much stuff we do. And so if anyone's interested or needs or wants an unpaid internship, the culmination of it is that you work festival weekend, which is so much fun. It's everything from doing food temperature checks to helping, run a stage to, it's really great experience, hands-on experience. And that's true. It's great for your resume. And actually, I'll point out again, Heather graduated from Loyola in this program. She became an intern at French Quarter Festivals. Then she was hired at French Quarter Festivals. Then she went to Tulane to finish her master's degree. Then she moved to New York and worked. Then she came back, and we got her again. So it all works out. And we're lucky to have her. And so interns are great. And if anyone is interested in being a volunteer, we have 1,000 volunteers, as I mentioned before, who would do everything from working the beer booth to information booths, selling merchandise, just kind of being our ambassadors and really putting out the good word about New Orleans to our locals and our tourists.
There's also pre-festival volunteer stuff that you can do too, as far as like production or anything like that.
Yeah. Right. And we passed out earlier I don't know if everyone got it. If you didn't get it, over here in that box is a program book. We produced it last year. It was our 25th anniversary, so we produced a program book, and it's all about the history of the organization. It's all about the festival, everything you ever want to know about French Quarter Festival. But as an additional bonus, Preservation Hall cut a special one-of-a-kind CD. It's a free CD in the book that's got great Preservation Hall tracks of trad jazz. So be sure and grab one of those on your way out. And also those little cards sitting there are just the save the date cards. So you've got the dates for this year's festival and more information about who we are.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if you talked a little about funding and sponsorship in your festival, like how you go about, especially when the festival first started out, because I'm really interested in hearing that.
Sure, sure. Funding is always the eternal struggle that makes me get gray hairs. It's really, really hard because it's not hard because we're very worthy in terms of who we are, our mission, what we do. We're very fundable, but the competition is so stiff. I mean, it's really stiff. And also, French Quarter Festival for so many years was small that it didn't require a lot of funding. It's only in recent years that it has boomed and grown to this gigantic, enormous, very expensive thing. And so right now I spend a lot of time bridging the gap of trying to pay for keeping this thing free. Because for us and for our board of directors, it's not an option that we start charging. So what I've done is, since I've gotten to the company, is enlisted a grant writer. And she right now, in just like 4 months' time, has written over $700,000 worth of grants. And I know I won't get $700,000, but if I can get a percentage of that, and we're hitting every foundation across the country, everything from people who fund jazz, people who fund culture and heritage, people who fund family events, even hurricane recovery stuff. And then in terms of sponsors, like corporate sponsors, the thing that I think you always have to look at your assets. What are the things you can offer them, and what are the opportunities that are valuable to them? And the biggest thing I can tell you is whenever you're going after a new sponsor, the biggest, most important thing is to do your research. Find out about the company, find out what their goals are. For example, last week I had a meeting with one of the top people at Entergy Corporation. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but Entergy's world headquarters are here in New Orleans. It's not just a little local utility company, it's a worldwide company, and they're one of the few world headquarters in New Orleans. And I went and I knew a lot about them, and I thought I had the perfect pitch, and I got in there, and they had no interest in what I was pitching them. They were like, tell me more about the kids area, tell me about the family area. And that was great. I mean, that's something we certainly need to help pay for too. So it's always important to do your research so you can go in kind of knowing what they want, but also be ready to take a turn and say, oh, okay, let's go that direction, because you just never know. So anyways, back to corporate sponsors. Corporate sponsors, last year, for example, the big new national one we brought on board was Saturn Corporation, Saturn Cars, and they were thrilled. They could not have been happier with, they had no idea that the festival was as big as it was. And on the very first day, on Friday, they completely ran out of stuff. I mean, they were trying to collect names and email addresses, and they had prizes and giveaways, and they had cars out there and people. And on day one, they completely ran out. So I got the call at like 2 in the afternoon, where's the nearest Kinko's? We need to make copies. So that's like something, a sponsor, you can't make them happier than to, under-promise and over-deliver, in terms of, but what we offer them is exposure. We offer, for people like Zataran's, product sampling. We pretty much, we'll tailor it to whatever their goals are. And that's where I'm saying do your research. Like, are they looking to get marketing out there? Are they looking for goodwill? Are they looking for, you have to align what you've got with what they want.
Thank you.
Sure.
Marci, have you done any kind of analysis of the economic impact of the festival on the economy here in New Orleans?
Yeah, the University of New Orleans does the survey for us every year, the Hospitality Research Center. Dr. Janet Spire, who's wonderful. And the economic impact of French Quarter Festival, just that one festival alone, is $149 million. And then the direct tax revenue that's made to the city and the state is $10 million. So it's good. Thank you. I just want to mention too, just as a side note, so all these years before I came to French Quarter Festival, I worked for New Orleans Opera, Michigan Opera Theater, and Opera Pacific out in California. And in terms of like what the gentleman just asked me, funding-wise, it's so different. I mean, the nonprofit arts are interesting in every way because they're just so different. Like opera is its own crowd, and fundraising is just as hellacious as it is a festival. I mean, it's all fun. It's a challenge. I mean, it's just a big challenge, and you have to look at it that way. Is, you know, how am I getting someone to love my organization as much as I love it and believe in it? I mean, really, what you're doing is you're selling them just on. You got to believe in it in order to sell it, right? I mean, that's number one. Whether you're marketing and trying to sell tickets, or whether you're selling a sponsorship, you know, and trying to. It's a lot of it is being genuinely enthusiastic and knowledgeable about what you're selling.
Questions? I think we were just only 5 minutes left, so if anybody has questions, we can.
I'm sorry, to continue talking about the sponsorship issue, one of the biggest problems when approaching a sponsor is how do you know how much to ask them for? What's the right amount that you want to ask? Are you asking for too much, or do you feel like you're getting too little? Could you talk about what exactly is an aspect of trying to figure out how much of your funding that you can get from one sponsor or another?
And that's interesting too. It's there's a website you can go to. It's called guidestar.com, and you don't have to join as a member. You can look at things for free, and you can look at tax returns. And a lot of what you can look at is tax returns. It's tax returns for nonprofits. So you can look at comparable organizations to your own organization. I'm not sure if it's just nonprofits or it's all, but anyways, it's for sure nonprofits. But you can go in and do research about how much other people, like I could go in and see what Jazz Fest is getting, for example, from, you know, whoever's funding them. You can do research that way. And then back to the example of last week when I was in Entergy's offices, I went in and asked for one thing, and the conversation turned to a third of what I was asking for. You just have to be prepared to, you know, sometimes shoot for the moon if it's appropriate. Otherwise, if it's a first-year ask, you might want to start conservative, and the idea is to wow them in that first year and then go after a multi-year. Like start with, you know, let's introduce you to the organization, let's make you so happy, and then after that say, you know, the next year, why don't we talk about a 3-year sponsorship and see if you, because then your life is so much easier because once you've got them for 3 years, you focus on new people. You don't, you know what I mean? Like we had Zatarans was in multi-years with us, which was great. Sure. Funding is always the hardest thing. That's why development directors get paid a lot of money. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, we have.
Oh right, I forgot. We brought some fun stuff. So
Make
let's
sure
see.
everybody's paying attention.
We were talking about.
to
I
the
hate doing
quiz.
this, but we're like, let's see. Let's give a quiz. So, does anyone know what year French Quarter Festival was founded? Wait, he was first. Boo. Okay, so you can have it. Do you want to set? It's the Satchmo Summerfest hat. Come on down.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I've got one.
Okay.
I got
and-
it. What was the estimated economic impact of French Quarter Festival on New Orleans?
149 million.
Excellent. And a very cool Satchmo Summerfest T-shirt.
We're going to have to start making these questions harder.
Yeah, we need harder questions. Okay, let's see. What are the dates of this year's French Quarter Festival? Very important. Oh.
4, 11, 12, and 13.
No, that's last year. Is it too big for you? No. Okay, good. Sure. Excellent.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so the story behind that is French Quarter Festival, normally we're always, annually we're always the second week in April, unless Easter falls on our dates.
Okay.
French Quarter Festival.
I've got a question.
So if Easter falls on our date, we move it back a week. So this year we're the weekend before Jazz Fest, which we think is so exciting because it'll be 3 weekends of just amazing music.
Oh, I have one.
3 what?
Name the 3 festivals.
Oh, yeah, name all
What are
3
the 3
festivals.
festivals that we produce? All right. I've got a question.
This shirt's cool. This is 25th anniversary.
How is the entertainment at French Quarter Festival selected?
Is it a good size or you want bigger?
Yes. Okay.
This is large. Is that large? I don't know what that is.
I feel like we need like game theme music. Dun, 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 dun. All right, we have. Oh right.
Maybe
The,
to
the
a
other
shirt
question
and
is it anybody's birthday today?
Oh yeah, whose birthday is it? No birthdays? Whose birthday was it yesterday?
Yours is April 17th?
Oh, April 17th. Okay, good deal.
Okay, that
Yeah.
works. Are you serious?
Good answer. Sacramento Summerfest. Yeah. Again, thank you all for having us. It's really a pleasure.